Hey guys, Chris from the Ultimate Recycler. Welcome back to the channel. Look at this massive pile of stuff behind me. It is time to start unboxing. Now, for those of you that have been following my channel for a while, you know I did a massive big cleanup. We had a 50-part series on the Great Backyard Cleanup, which turned into Great Shop Cleanup because I had to vacate my old premises under somewhat of a large amount of pressure. We made the deadline. A lot of it got moved to an emergency shed here. And I know a lot of you like unboxings. We're going to go for it now, and I'm going to start getting into this lot. My shoulder's a lot better. I've had shoulder surgery this year. If you're just joining my channel, there's been lots going on. So we're going to start dealing with some of this, and I'll be pumping out some videos fairly quickly. We need to sort it out, and at the moment, in the workshop, I've got 2 buckets. Let's go and have a look at them. Now, my shed's a mess as well, as you can see, but I have made some room on the bench here. Oh, that heater I have to check shortly. We might do a separate video on that. I have 2 buckets. Now, I'm not going to screen stuff for you guys. I am the Ultimate Recycler. I aim to show you what to do with stuff. And believe me, I have got stuff. The amount of things that have piled up here. And I had a lot of people help me. I don't know what's in what. There's been things just tipped into random containers. There's going to be a lot of scrap, so we're going to be dealing with scrap. I can see some copper pipe there. So this video, we're going to empty these 2 buckets, sort it out, see how much value is there, see what we're going to do with it, and basically empty 2 buckets to make a start on that storage shed. Now, a plan of attack? Oh, I don't know. How about we just do this? 1 bucket emptied. Let's see what we got here. This could have come out of the shed. It might have been lying in the backyard in the grass. I don't know. Let's sort it out. Okay, now there's going to be some scrap metal. That's actually a bracket from an old insulator, probably a ceramic insulator. I think I'll hang on to that because I have got some insulators. I can screw one back on there, a bit more saleable. Some of this is just really old bits of bracket. That's going to be brass. I'll show you how I sort them. Actually, I'll go and get a magnet now. And the beauty with my new microphone system is that you should get good audio wherever I walk now, so that's great. Okay, that is non-magnetic. I'll get a file quickly and show you how I check, but there's no steel on that. It should be able to go as clean brass. And when I say clean, it doesn't have to be like washed in soapy water. It just needs to not have any steel or other metal impurities. This old hinge is another piece of brass. We'll check it with a file, but the pivot rod will be steel. Yep. Just using a microwave magnet here, and it is not worth trying to get the steel out of it. It's well and truly corroded. This is possibly even something I dug up when looking for bottles and just brought it home because it was brass. I'll start a bin for dirty brass. We still get pretty good dollars for dirty brass. Much better than just throwing it out to the transfer station here as general steel. But it's certainly not worth stripping for clean brass. So easy decision. Dirty brass. Let's make that our dirty brass bucket. This one here is magnetic. It actually looks like it's something to do with like a temperature sensor from a hot water unit or something. The end here is going to be steel. That's a little brass knob. That part is cast aluminium. But cast aluminium is not worth enough to worry about trying to clean that up. The only thing I might do is just undo this little adjusting thing here. We have a spring. I'll keep my springs. A couple of bits of steel will fall off. The rest of that can just go in as dirty brass as well. This little piece I undid is clean brass. Okay, we have a doorknob. Too badly corroded to use, not magnetic at all. That's brass. I'll get my file to show you that too. Actually, we'll check with the file at the end. So we have brass, we have hardware that I'm going to keep, bit of steel. This is a galvanized bracket from a pipe. It's a clamp, basically. I'm not sure. It's almost like scaffolding. Here's some more of it. So these things clamp around your galvanized pipes when you're making frames up. I usually put all them in a box and sell them. I have got some other stuff of that somewhere, so I'll put them aside. This is looks like a tent peg, but it's actually aluminium. I can tell that because it's very, very light. And I have got a file here now, and if we file it, aluminium is really easy to pick because it's nice, bright silver, and it's very soft. The file bites into it very easily. So a piece of aluminium there. This one is also the same. Very soft. You can feel the way the file bites into it. Non-magnetic, nice and light, aluminium. This looks like a handle of something. I'm not sure. It may have even been like to lash a blind round. I don't think it's anything valuable. It's heavy steel though. We'll have a bucket for heavy steel. This bracket here looks like a part of an old meat press, if I remember rightly. It had a thumb screw go on top, but it's cast aluminium. It's very light, it's non-magnetic, and it's nice and soft. Cast aluminium. Has to go separate from normal domestic aluminium, but that's fine. Here's a little screw. Maybe that went in that. Yeah, sort of, yep. I think that's what it went. But anyway, we don't need that. This piece is non-magnetic, but it's heavy. It's not aluminium. And a quick file. I think it's brass. It could be stainless steel. It's soft enough to be brass, and I can see a little bit of yellow. Let's try the threads. Yeah, they're very soft, and I can see some yellow. We could hit it with a grinder and do the spark test, because brass won't spark, but stainless steel will. But I know that's brass, so that's clean brass. A bit more aluminium wire. You can tell immediately how light it is, and you certainly get used to that when you're sorting scrap. The grey colour and how light it is. That's the top off a little tap, I think. It's quite light. It's cast aluminium. Not magnetic, so cast aluminium. Another one of those. Actually, that's different. That's the top of a water tap. A removable top. It's too rusty to try and save. That's just going in my heavy steel bin. That is actually the handle bracket from a lawnmower, and that can go in the heavy steel bin as well. Heavy steel is thicker than 6mm or 1/4 inch, and the insize, they call it heavy insize. Insize is less than a metre, so we're well and truly less than a metre. Heavy steel. Another pin here. Don't know what that's out of. Could have been from anything. Definitely steel. This piece of pipe has some screws in it. It could be copper, it could be brass. Let's make sure it's not magnetic. It's not. Let's hit it with a file. And I can see the yellow there, it's brass. If it had been copper, it would have been quite a pink colour. So you can really pick the difference between copper and brass for any of you that are beginner scrappers. Now, as that is, it would have to go as dirty. But because there's only 2 screws there and there's a fair amount of brass, I think we'll get the screws out. I'll put that aside for now. Now we have a dirty old tap here. It's probably been lying in the dirt for a long time. Let's check it with a magnet. That end is sticks, so that's steel. That little joiner in there is also steel. The tap itself doesn't, so that'll be brass. This end is also steel, but the rest of it's non-magnetic. So a file again will tell us that's yellow, so it's brass. The top will be as well. Sometimes you need to check the stem at the top, but nice yellow colour there. Seeing so there's a fair bit of weight there, it's worth putting in the vise and trying to undo the 2 fittings. And I'll show you how I get those off later. That goes into the, we need to separate that pile. Okay, some more steel bits here, quite heavy. Not really sure what they're off. They do look like handles off something, but they're quite rusty. They're just steel. Magnetic again. They can go in a heavy steel bucket. This piece has been painted, but it is copper pipe. Let's run the file across that. Very soft. You can really feel it grab the file. Quite pink there. I'm not sure if you can see that. Very pink. So that would go as number 2 copper because it's painted. But this little fitting will be brass. Plumbing fittings are nearly always brass if they're non-magnetic. Nice yellow from brass, non-magnetic. We will separate those two. It's worthwhile doing that. Oh, I don't know what that is. It's some sort of, I reckon that's part of an early horse harness of some sort. It's quite old. It looks like someone's filed that recently. It's fairly soft. It's non-magnetic, but I don't think it's brass because I can't see any yellowness. Some of this early harness gear could have been zinc. I'm not sure. Or even nickel. Could have been nickel. So it's a bit hard to tell, that one. You could get away with throwing that in your brass bin because the scrapyards aren't going to know it actually looks brass from its patina, and it's non-magnetic, so that would probably pass off as brass. I suspect that one is actually nickel though. I might put that aside. Okay, we have a collar here, very dirty, that's clearly been buried in the soil at some stage. That is a water fitting. Pretty sure it'll be brass. Yeah, nice yellow look there. So clean brass. A little bit here of probably copper, might be brass. Fire will tell us it's actually brass. Good, we're getting a few bits of brass. Ah, this bit. Been lying in the dirt too. This featured in one of my mystery object videos recently. Well, not this exact one, but one of these. And that's actually a milk boiler or a pot keeper. A kitchen appliance. It is stainless steel and it's non-magnetic stainless, so it would sell, but stainless was only getting about $1 a kilo, so I reckon I'll just wash that up and put it in the shop. Should be able to get $4 for that. This looks like a part of a hacksaw. Quite an old one. The handle is a die cast, or it's probably a cast zinc. It's non-magnetic, and you can get away with putting that, at least with my scrapyard, they will take that as cast aluminium. But I'm not going to try and get that rivet out. It's very rusty. So that can just go in the... Look, it could go in your shred. I'm not having a pile for shred. I'm not saving light gauge steel anymore or pressing steel. I don't have the room anymore. So I'll put that in a tub to take out to the transfer station here with any other light gauge steel I get. I simply don't have the room to save it, and the price of it isn't... It's not conducive for me to take it to Melbourne. So that's a nothing. That goes to the transfer station. I'll have to start a bin for that somewhere. Okay, what have we got under here? Some more copper pipe. This was number 2 copper with a brass fitting, so we'll separate that as well. This piece is an element out of a heater. Now most of it is like a ceramic. No scrap value there. There's a little bit of wire, so we'll probably cut the wire off. The little switch mechanism here does have some silver buttons. Anywhere where you have a contact switch, there's normally little buttons that have a high percentage of silver. I tend to save the bigger ones, and the bracket's brass, so I think we might just break that open because the plastic will break apart really easily. We'll chop the wires off here. The rest of it's no real scrap value. The wires on these heating elements, there's some type of nickel chromium, something like that. They're a special alloy. So yeah, there's really no value there. That can probably go into the e-waste stream at the local transfer station. So I'll just clip the wires and we'll break out that switch in a minute. They can go in the cleanup pile. Really getting through this one now. This one looks like part of a refrigeration unit. It's going to have copper pipe. That's going to be a mostly brass fitting. We'll check it with a magnet, but I don't think there'll be any steel here at all. It's all either copper. Oh, something's magnetic inside. So we might see if that'll come apart because there's a fair bit of brass and copper there. This one will be copper. This one will be brass. And I'm pretty sure this casing will be brass too. Yes, definitely brass. But there's some ferrous in there, so we'll have to get that out. So we'll put that in the to be stripped pile. What's left in our little pile on the table here? We have a wood screw. I have a tin for those. We have a little hose thing with little fittings brass. Not worth trying to get that out. They can go in the dirty brass pile, which is where? Where did I put the dirty brass? Oh, in that bucket, of course, the dirty brass bucket. A bit more wire. Oh, that's part of that other plastic electrical casing, so a bit more brass there. We'll clean that up in a minute. We have just a washer. Sometimes washers can be lead. That's just a steel one. Into the hardware bin, and that's it. Okay, let's clean up our desk. Nice to have a nice clean area to work. And it's nice to have emptied one bucket, even though we haven't really dealt with a lot just yet. Okay, we'll get some tubs organised for this so we can weigh it up at the end and work out how much value of stuff we've found. Okay, let's quickly clean up this copper pipe for a start. I like to slide the fitting back. Obviously it doesn't slide over the damaged parts of the pipe, but we'll slide it back a bit and we can then cut through with a hacksaw. You could use a grinder, but copper's so soft the hacksaw does it very quickly anyway. You do need to cut the pipe without damaging it so the fitting can come off. Hacksaw blade's a little bit sharp. You're sometimes better with a blunt hacksaw blade for copper. When they're sharp, they kind of grab too quickly, too severely. Okay, so now the fitting will easily just slide off the end. So a piece of brass, a piece of copper, and another piece of copper. Now to get this fitting apart, to get the brass tap out from these metal fittings that have been obviously done up in there a long time, they're going to be quite tight. I'm going to use a large pair of Stilsons, but before I try that, I'm going to jar this with a hammer. And what that does is it frees up the threads. It will make it undo a lot easier. So I've got a heavy piece of steel to use as an anvil on the concrete so that there's going to be maximum jarring through here. If you do it on a wooden bench, you tend to lose a lot of the impact. I've got a little short mash hammer here. I do have to be careful swinging this with my shoulder still in healing mode, but it's getting there and I think I can do this all right. And just going to jar the threads. So we'll hit it a few times on this side and then we'll rotate it round and hit it on each side. A little bit more. And on the other side again, and that should go a long way to freeing up those threads and allow us to undo it easily. In fact, I can even see that it's loosened the rust around the side there. Remember, the brass won't corrode. It's mainly the steel that rusts, and it grows as it rusts, so it becomes very tight. We'll do the same for the other side, and then we'll take it across to the vise and see if we can undo it. We'll whack it in our vise here. So I'm using some Stilsons on here. They should grip it quite well. If it's still very tight, we could get an extension of pipe on the handle of the Stilsons. But there we go. That didn't take very much at all. And I'm sure that a little bit of a hammer around all sides does make that much difference. And it won't take long to undo this now. And there we go. I don't think I'll keep that. It's pretty rusty and I've got plenty of plumbing fittings that can go in our heavy steel bucket. Okay, let's try the other side. Beautiful. Some more heavy steel. And a nice piece of clean brass for our brass bin. Okay, let's get back to tidying this stuff up. It's been a few days since I've been doing this and I need my bench back. I just hit this plastic thing with a hammer and it just fell apart, so that was pretty easy. So that's going to be a little bit of rubbish. I did get a little aluminium plate off here, so we have a pile for aluminium. A few bits of insulated wire. I'm not going to try and strip them at all. They can just go as normal insulated wire. The brass brackets here, we'll check them with a magnet. Just make sure there's no steel rivets anywhere. That's all good. So we have mostly brass, but this springy piece I think is called phosphor bronze or something. It's a higher percentage of copper, but it's not worth taking it off and selling it separately. I'm going to leave it with the brass. You can always sell brass with copper attached because they try to recover the copper out of the brass anyway. So with copper attached, it's just a bonus for them. Whereas you can't sell copper with brass attached because it downgrades it. So all I'm going to do with this piece is just take this little silver button off as best we can. Long term, I might try and refine the silver. I'm not sure. Or maybe I'll just sell them as a jar full of silver buttons, which they will sell on eBay like that. So we'll decide that later on. The good thing is they don't take much storage room. And now that pile can go in with our clean brass. The last piece we have to separate is this contraption here. Now I have loosened these just with these Stilsons. They weren't very tight at all. Usually when you've got brass going onto brass, they will undo very easily, but you can use the hammer technique if they're tight. That copper, because it's not damaged, might just about slide through. There we go. So we have probably number 2 copper. It's a bit corroded. We can't really sell that as bright and shiny. A brass fitting again. And the base of this was the same. I just cracked it with the spanner and it undid really easily. And we should be able to slide this through if there's no sharp bends to save us getting the hacksaw out. There we go. So another piece of brass, some more copper. Again, there's quite a bit of corrosion on this, so it'll just go as number 2. And what we have left here, remember we had some ferrous or some magnetic attraction to the top part. This bottom section looks like it's a filter of some sort. And we'll just check that with a magnet. Okay, there is magnetic attraction there. I think there's a steel spring in there. So unless it's easy to get out, I'm not going to worry about it. I think we'll just... Oh, actually, you've got to make these decisions quickly when you're scrapping. We might even be able to just snip through here and get the spring out. Yeah, that's probably the easiest way. The moment you have to start undoing things that are tight or rusty, it's not worth the hassle. But we've got the spring out. And now that should leave us with... Where's our magnet? Obviously the spring's magnetic there, and the rest of it isn't. So that can now go in our clean brass bin. The rest of this, well, this is copper pipe again. They use long thin tubes for temperature sensing and that, and they're usually just like a thick copper wire, but they're hollow. So I'll chop that off there. So that gives us some good, probably number 2 copper again. It's a bit corroded. And let's just check the magnet. So it's magnetic in the top, and I think that little spring type thing is magnetic too. So we'll see if that'll come off. We might just be able to leave. There we go. Yep, that was magnetic. And we just need to get into here and have a look in here. That wasn't tight. I was actually expecting that to be tight. Okay, that part's brass. You can see the wonderful brass colour there. No impurities there. We're going to need to get in here. There's possibly a spring in here as well. Again, not sure. Not sure how this comes apart, but it's big enough to have a quick look at. If there wasn't much brass involved, I wouldn't worry. I'd throw it straight in the dirty brass bin. So you do need to make a call, and you need to kind of decide quickly. This might even free up with hitting. Okay, I couldn't work out how that came off. I gave it a quick thump with a hammer to see if it would break the end off, and it didn't. So no mucking around. I've not wasted any time other than probably 5 seconds to see if it pops off easily. That's just going to go in the dirty brass bin. And that's what I mean about making quick decisions. If you muck around for 10 minutes trying to get this apart, you've really wasted more time than what the brass is worth. And you can estimate that by weighing what you've got in your hand. And I'll just check what this weighs for a good example. Put it on the scales here. And it's a bit hard to read on these big scales, but we've got 200 grams. So 200 grams of brass. If that was all brass, brass was paying around about $6 a kilo at the moment. So that's 1/5 of that. So it's maybe $1. Is it worth mucking around for 10 minutes to make $1? Probably not. You've got to make that call. If it's a hobby, you might find it's worthwhile. I'm not going to worry. Throw it straight in the dirty brass bin and move on. And remember that some of that 200 grams of weight is going to be steel. So if you did pull it apart, remove the steel, your brass is less than 200 grams. So there we go. That's just how I like to logically look at it. It depends on the situation, but I've got so much stuff here that already it's going to take me a lifetime to sort out. I don't need to spend 10 to 15 minutes making $1. Just on that efficiency of time though, I'm going to revisit this piece that we threw in our bucket of waste to go to the transfer station, or basically shred. You don't always have to take things apart. And I just looked at this, thought, oh, maybe I didn't consider all possibilities with this. So for minimal amount of time, let's use the hammer. How easy was that? We now have a piece that can go in our cast aluminium bucket, and the rest of this can now just go in the shred box. Okay guys, we're all sorted here. The entire contents of that bucket is on this table with a few notes. Let's run through it quickly. We had our heavy steel, we had our number 2 copper, we had our clean brass, our dirty brass, some domestic aluminium I'm calling that, and cast aluminium. I had a little bit of hardware. I will keep the wood screws, I'll keep the springs because I sell jars full of springs. Little copper button, silver buttons there. A little bit of hardware I have jars for. Even brass screws I'll put in a separate jar because they sell, not allowing any value for that. And I appreciate that most of you won't be able to sell that sort of stuff, but it is handy to stack up in your own workshop. I'm going to value add with some of these things. I'll keep that piece of nickel. I'm pretty sure it's nickel. I don't know what for. I haven't seen the price of nickel at a scrapyard before, but I do some nickel plating, so I might try that piece and see what happens. We can sell these. We can sell that little milk boiler. What else did we have? A little bit of insulated wire. This element I'm going to send out to the transfer station with for e-waste. A little bit of, I've just got a tin here for little bits of light gauge steel that I don't want to keep, and I'll just take the tin out to the transfer station when it's full, so that will get recycled. This is the only rubbish out of the whole tin, so hardly anything going to landfill. And as far as our values go, well, I've priced everything out there at the current prices as of October 22 in Australia. It's going to vary wherever you're from, but there's $13.86 worth of scrap metal in that one bucket, plus we should get $4 for this. These will add to other things for value. My hardware's of value, but not worth writing down, of course, because it's so minuscule. But everything gets recycled. There's a bit of value. That's how I sort a bucket full of random scrap metal. So I hope you got a bit of fun out of it, a bit of enjoyment out of that, and maybe a bit of knowledge. Just before I wind things up here, guys, I have revisited a couple of pieces here, even after I did the figures and told you what dollars of scrap I got. It's something that the more scrapping you do, the more you kind of fine-tune your decision making. I threw that in dirty brass, but really it took me about 4 seconds just to hacksaw through that part, and we've got a nice chunk of clean brass. It's got a little bit of copper on it, but that doesn't matter. And this part has the impurity inside it, so we've reduced the amount of good brass we're putting in the dirty brass. And likewise with this large hinge, the brass was quite brittle because it's very old, and I just broke the clean bits off with my fingers. And I'm not obviously going to worry about trying to get the pin out of those. I'm not going to go to any more trouble than what about 5 seconds worth did. But look, hey, I've got that much more clean brass for minimal work. Our dirty brass pile has been reduced. So efficiency comes with practice. Just some little effort like this can increase your value without wasting too much more time. So thanks for watching, guys. There's one bucket sorted out from my big shed full of stuff. Let me know what you thought of this, if I should do all this sort of stuff. Look, there's going to be buckets similar, but not one bucket's going to be the same. There's going to be boxes of treasures that will be stocked for the shop or some restoration projects. I don't know what's in half of these. So let me know if you enjoy these. I will keep putting them through because as I show you, at least it's making me sort stuff out. I'll start some scrap bins for home that I'll keep neat and organised and out of the road, so the yard here won't get as messy as what it used to at the shop. And eventually we'll do some more scrap runs. So thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.